This is F.D. Recovery, where we interview addicts and alcoholics.
Our aim is that through this podcast, we might help you on your journey of recovery.
Thank you for listening.
Hello, this is Frank with F.D. Recovery, and you are listening to the Weekly Intention. So, and with me I have...
My name is Shelly.
Her name is Shelly. My name is Frank. I'm pretty sure I said that. But, so the way the Weekly Intention works is we... here, let me get adjusted here. We choose a spiritual principle or our topic, and we chat about it, and we work it in our week, yada, 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 right? So last week was determination. We'll do a recap on that, and then we'll jump into our new one for this next week is... I don't know if you guys could hear that on the mic, but it was supposed to be a drum roll, and it's confidence. And we're confident that you guys will love this podcast. So, some determination. I figured confidence was a good one to go right after determination, right? So determination, right? The way it worked in my week, there wasn't some crazy thing that kind of showed through. It was just kind of cool to talk about, especially like for me in my recovery setting for rehab. It was just kind of cool to talk about determination, and especially at their early stage and where they're at, right? It's just kind of cool to talk about because in there there's a lot of excuses, right? Well, I don't have a this and I don't have a that, and people aren't treating me this, and there's just a whole lot of expectations, right? And I only speak that not through judgment but I was there, right? I did a lot of that. And I think that talking about determination, especially when you're in an early stage like that, can be super important, because sometimes we can get a little lackluster and let things stop us. Very simple things like, stubbing our toe, and all of a sudden, I need to get high,
Sorry.
That's kind of how it is, though. And
Probably a real
that's
situation for some. Shouldn't have laughed.
well, the thing is, right, is for me, the addict that I was, it was just about whatever came along to kind of give me that free pass, and just like whatever I can get upset about gave me the free pass, because I used anger as one of my tools to work me out of any recovery situation, right? And the determination, and talking about determination in that setting kind of lets you know, hey, it's either we're going to rise above these challenges and get to that next plateau in our recovery, or we're just going to allow ourselves to let all these excuses stand in our way and not allow us to get to that place we know we need to get, right? And it was an interesting topic in there, because it was like, wow, I didn't even realize either, getting to that point, and how determination plays a key part in recovery, but also early recovery, because it takes a lot of sticking to it in that early part of it. And the reason I know that is because there was a lot of failure on my end. And so we talked about that. A lot of these excuses that allow us to not stick to our plan, a lot of these excuses. And I didn't think excuses was going to be connected to determination so much, but we were talking about that. And a lot of people would raise their hand and tell them, well, this and that. And I'm like, the fucked up thing about excuses is they're all 100% valid. Right?
Well, it's self-justification.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we use that. We
We
use that as a tool.
reason and we talk ourselves into it. And the way addicts are good at doing that is creating, it's the manipulation. It's
Mm-hmm.
like creating the reason where people can't tell you no. Like for me, when I was drinking, my excuses and my justification, because I wasn't the type of alcoholic to start when I was really young. I had addictive behaviors, but that alcohol didn't really come into the picture until I was in my, I want to say early 20s, and now I'm in my mid 30s. But my excuse, my justification, my reasoning behind it at that time, well, was I was a good girl in school. I did all the work, I did the homework, I didn't go outside of that. I was pretty straight and rigid. And then when I saw alcohol and, it was more regularly available before I was 21, well, I never partied, right? I didn't go to high school parties. I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs, all that. So, you know what? I'm going to enjoy myself now. But when you start using that, like I did, as an excuse every day, and it progressively got worse, I mean, that's just justification that, what word did I use? Irrealistic.
Huh?
There's a there
Unrealistic expectation.
self-justification, but I feel like
There we go.
is that the word? I said it earlier. God, until I haven't been on this in a while.
Well, the rationalization part of it,
Mm,
right?
that.
And we use many tools of deception when we're dealing with our own rationale, right? For me, like, I can totally get that. It's like, make up for lost time. Let's like, even when I was locked up and I would come out, I'd be like, dude, there was like 6 months where I was sober. I think I need to make up as much drugs as possible in my system
He's
because
6
I was
months
6
and
months
24 hours.
exactly. So I think there we go. I thought it stopped recording for some reason. But I would use that even just, I mean, I've been high most of my life since 13. And even my little vacations, we'll call it, 6 months, 3 months, a year and a half.
Court mandated
It was
vacations.
like I got to make up for that lost time. So I that's definitely par for the course for addict and alcoholics. It's like, it doesn't matter when you start, and then it doesn't matter if you stop in the middle of your starting, if that makes sense. We're going to be like, oh man, I didn't get high for 6 months. I got to make up for that, right? So you party even harder.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people that start later in life have a huge disadvantage. Not to say that one is superior than the next, but some people think because they start like later that they have more of a permission slip
Right.
to be like, oh, okay, well, I didn't party then, so let's party now. And some of those, they talks about that, I think, in a story in the big book where it's, where somebody retired and decided they're going to drink again,
Mm-hmm.
and they were dead in a couple years. It was talking about. So it's super important to stay aware of that, right? And it's crazy how when we talk about excuses and rationale and justifications, it's a tricky thing to move through. And I didn't think through determination that excuses would come up so much, because I realized if you want to take the island, you burn the boats. That's what Tony Robbins says. That's right. You don't give yourself a plan B. When you allow yourself a plan B, then you give yourself an out, right? And when we talk about an out, that's where those excuses, where those rationale things come up. Yeah, you got to have realistic standpoint. If something's not working, then you have to probably adjust your approach, change it, and so on and so forth. But when you start doing plan A, plan B, plan C, it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, do you really want it? Like, because most of this stuff, whether you believe it or not, and that's what it's truly tied to, is your belief system. If you don't believe it, and if you're not willing to put in that effort, then you're going to have a hard time achieving it. But once you truly believe it, and you're telling yourself, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get this done, and then you apply that to recovery. I mean, that's the only reason I'm here. I just had to decide, like, I'm going to do what I need to do to stay sober, because before I didn't have a path that actually gave me evidence to say, oh, he could be sober for 7 years, because that wasn't a thing, right? I didn't string together that long under my own power at all.
It makes me think of willingness. In order to get to the point where you're determined to take those actions, it goes hand on hand with willingness, which is discussed very early on in recovery and acceptance, because you can't have one without another. A lot of these spiritual principles, topics, and what have you, they go hand in hand. They're interchangeable, and you can't, in all honesty, in my opinion, you can't have one without the other successfully.
It forces you, when you see the thing that this actually got brought up during my last meeting. It was like, we were on the topic of like, okay, I go week to week, right, with spiritual principles. The reason I do that, because it forces me to use all these other spiritual principles. So if I want to use determination, well, tenacity, honesty, all those things are tied into that, because if I really want something, then that means I'm being honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can be like, because the way it works, a priority list, right? If you really want something and you're truly determined, then it'll show out in your actions. If you don't want it and you're not truly determined, then it's not true, which dishonesty steps in the picture, right? So these are those important things. If you want something, then you will do it. And when you use one spiritual principle, it forces you to use many.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the super important thing, is when we stay into the spiritual principle aspect of it, the principles before personalities, we start losing the ego of it and start working the principles of it, right? And that's why it's super important, because when you're talking about determination, there's spiritual principles involved. Things like, if you didn't notice, there was a little break there, but we fix it with a strong edit. And going back to our topic, right? So, when we're talking about determination, there's a whole lot that's involved. So it forces one spiritual principle forces you to use a whole bunch of other ones, right? And that will lead us into our next topic, which is confidence. And we have our trusted reader here with us. Go
I
ahead.
don't know if he trusts me as much as you guys think.
I'm
Confidence.
confident in you.
Okay. Confidence, the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something. Firm trust. There's a couple of other definitions. The only other one that really stuck out that I kind of correlate to recovery, a feeling of self-assurance arising from one's appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities.
So what is your take on confidence?
Ooh, well, to be quite frank with you,
I'll be
I've
frank.
always been a little bit more introverted and insecure. And I really lacked that. I was more of a follower than a leader, definitely in school. I had a hard time voicing my own true opinions. And I see that now in hindsight. And I think one of the reasons that led me to lean on alcohol in my early adult years was because I felt that it gave me the confidence that I lacked. And, there are situations where that really was the case, but there's some compromise there where, though the alcohol gave me that fake faux pas confidence, it also, I had no, I was, I've been an impulsive person, and that's something that will always be a part of my personality that I have to manage. But when you put that alcohol on top of that, so not only am I confident, I am extremely impulsive, and I don't act based off of any rational decision making. And when you're like that constantly all the time, you're not just confident, you're an idiot. And I made a lot of stupid decisions. So confidence now that I've been clean and sober for over 6 years, I have a different sense of confidence where I am more comfortable in my own skin, and I don't have to any longer rely on alcohol, on drugs to change that or to make me feel better in my own skin and my own feelings. I've got other tools that I can utilize, and they work just as good, well, actually phenomenally better than what I was doing before.
Yeah, I felt, to relate to that, I felt like there was a lot of beg, borrowing, and stealing, and there was a lot of bartering as far as, I feel like it relates to that story in the big book about trying to run the show, and you run the curtains, the lights, just trying to do, because it's all a performance, right?
Mhm.
See what happens, like, for confidence. Now that I'm in recovery, I read this good book called, or I listened to a good book, because I don't have enough time to sit down and read. But I do a lot of downtime, a lot of working out and things like that. So I read a book called Power and Force, or Power versus Force. And the whole concept is, when you're rooted in the reality of who you are, the truth of your personality in your inner environment, then you no longer have to. You no longer have to force a situation in a sense, right? Because force is a lot of coercion and like coercion, like of trying to trick people, manipulate. Force is like, and get, have to physically or or just through like abrasive actions, right? But true power, when you sit in your truth of what's going on, is like you don't really have to fight, right? Because the way it works, if you're feeling like, if you don't feel confident and you're not sure, it's because you don't believe, right? You don't believe that you're capable for whatever reason. Maybe you have done it in the past, whatever the situation it is, but you have that doubt within you that disconnects you from your true power. So what happens is, like, the one thing that I try to practice mostly is staying connected and grounded in my strengths, right? Not get over cocky, not get arrogant, but honor them, right? And I think the biggest thing that I used to do is never honor the good things about myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I always looked at everything as a hang up when it's really not, right? Because I posted something on Facebook and I said, if I would have listened to the wise man, if I would have listened to the wisdom of a wise man, I would never be where I'm at. So thank God I made mistakes, because that means I wouldn't have the life I have today. If I would have listened to my parents, because I think back and there was a time that, man, I should have listened. But now I'm in a position, I'm like, well, if I would have listened, I wouldn't have the life I have. So it's very important that I made all those mistakes. It's very important because we wouldn't have our daughter right now,
Mm-hmm.
because just one calculated change changes the course. It talks about the navigation of a ship. 1 degree doesn't really make a difference, but over a course of time, that shift's going to be so off course. So just one little calculation will change the whole trajectory of where your destination is going. And I think it's super important until you develop that kind of mindset. That's when you start realizing, like, this was all important stuff. Like, it needs to happen. And the more you fight it, the less confident you will be, because until you can sit in all your mistakes and understand they were not mistakes. If they were mistakes, then what are you doing this for? Because until you could enjoy who you are and where you're at, and appreciate the things that you have, and think and see the real value in it, and start to treasure it. Because if you start saying, hey, I'm not where I'm supposed to be, okay, well, you got to take an inventory of your life. You wouldn't have the people in it. You wouldn't have especially our daughter. That should have never been a thing,
Yeah.
right? But the fact is, both of our mistakes led us to this very reality. And were they mistakes? Because I'm very happy where I'm at, and you couldn't change my outlook, especially bringing our daughter into this world. It's like they were never mistakes. So when you look back at it and go, oh, all those things I thought were quote air quotes as bad, they're just the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you can release the shame and guilt and all the stuff attached to it, then you can start being truly confident. Because that's the difference between power and force. Like, you can force it and fake the funk and try to convince and perform for everybody, or you could accept where you're at. And that's what they say in recovery: acceptance is the answer to my problems today, right? The whole
Mm-hmm.
acceptance prayer. So that, as far as confidence starts with the truth. Where am I at? And understanding, like, nothing is a mistake. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the reality. So if you're in a position to where you're like, you can't treasure anything around you, that's totally a you thing. You're fucking up, right? And did you have something there that you wanted to read?
No, what you've been talking about makes me think of something that I heard, I believe early in my recovery. Don't remember exactly when, but Could have been when I was when I was working the steps with my sponsor. Anyways, what it is if you are having trouble accepting your situations, whatever that might be, not being okay, thinking of everything as a mistake. A simple exercise that had helped me and still does from time to time is if you take a moment and pause, and we're taught that in so many areas of our life, and look at your feet standing on the ground and tell yourself and remind yourself that where your feet are exactly where you need to be. Whether you fully understand what that means, what that looks like, that's irrelevant. That's information that will come to pass when it's supposed to. But just looking at your feet and being in that moment and accepting that moment for what it is, whether you're at rock bottom and rehab, you've got the shakes, or you're, dealing with all of those detox symptoms, or if you are playing outside with your daughter or your son or your kids or your family, what have you, taking a moment and just embracing that moment for what it is always helped me to just come back to center and realize that it's it's okay. This moment where I'm at, good or bad, is going to pass. And that has helped me process and help me with keeping my self-worth and my head and my path and my goals straight. It allows me to breathe in a capacity that I used to never be able to do.
Yeah, that's a key part to all this is slowing down. We have as addicts, we have this uncanny ability to have this either imposter syndrome or like I need more or I need different, and just never being satisfied. And that's not how life works. Like, and when you start working these spiritual principles, you start learning, hey, you're not okay with you. It's not anything around you. Your relationship and your interaction with your reality, it's within you. You're creating this, right? So any discomfort and all that, that's all up to you. You have control over
How you
your
feel?
how you feel, the ungrateful fucking feeling that I used to feel all the time. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. It's like a fucking tantrum, a spiritual tantrum that you really got to put in check because I mean, somebody always has it worse, right? And when you want to talk about confidence, right? Standing exactly where you are, looking exactly at the moment and staying present. There's nothing more important than staying present, right? There's nothing more important because if you want to stay with the connection of like you say, like yesterday, I was in the yard with our daughter, and that was just really cool. And I never used to appreciate situations like that. And being in that situation, that gives me confidence. Not confidence is not this um
Macho,
I'm a bad motherfucker. No,
mamma jamma.
confidence. Yeah, exactly. It's not all that. It's not all that ego shit. Confidence is standing in your true power and your true reality and understanding that you're using trust and faith and you're rooted in your higher power and your higher purpose. That's for me, that's when I feel the most confident is when I'm on the path that I know is my purpose. There's nothing that's unshakable when you're standing in faith with God and on your path and in your purpose and you're doing it on purpose, right? So the most important thing is if you want to have confidence, you need to start following your purpose and then connecting all that to determination and all these other spiritual principles, especially for the week, right? So just we're gonna get off of the podcast. She got to go back to work, but just to leave you with a footnote throughout the week is start stepping into your true power, start connecting with your higher power and your higher purpose. Because trust me, you may not believe it, or maybe you don't see it, or maybe you do. Whatever position you're at in this topic, you matter and you have a purpose, and it's up to you to find that. And once you get down that road of on your purpose and on purpose, you're going to see how your life changes and how God will use you in so many different situations. So please stand in confidence, be confident, show confidence in people that you trust them, bring confidence about in your reality, and you'll be surprised on how much your life changes. And I think that's all we have today. Do you want to say bye to the listeners?
Goodbye, listeners.
Bye, guys. We love you. This is F.D. Recovery. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to FD Recovery. A reminder, be kind to yourself on this journey of recovery. Also, call your sponsor, get connected to local support groups, and for one day at a time, stay clean and sober.